I was originally a dancer. In high school, I saw the movie Seven. I loved the opening title sequence for that movie. Learned so much about the story without any dialogue. It's been a really kind of daunting time for a lot of editors, but I feel like things are slowly starting to pick up a little bit. Like he emailed notes at one point and we were all just like, whoa, Mel Brooks emailed us.
So what we're saying is that if you want to be a successful Hollywood editor like Steph Filo, take a class at Manhattan Editor Workshop. That's what we're saying.
Or become a dancer, so you know why the volume on your Zoom was low and how to record. Come on, you don't fool anybody.
Hey everyone, I am Rafi Salem, back with the Manhattan Edit Workshop. Once again, Josh Apter and Jason Banke, thank you very much for hosting. And today we have the one and only Steph Filo. So welcome. Josh and Jason, why don't you take it away and tell the audience a little bit about Manhattan Edit Workshop?
Sure. Okay. So founded way back in 2002, Manhattan Edit Workshop was always centered on the idea of teaching the art of editing, not just the technical experience of editing. And in the interest of that, we had a 4-week and then briefly turned into a 6-week workshop that taught you. It was like almost like a boot camp, full time, all day, every day for 6 weeks, learning Avid and Final Cut and cutting a reel. And we actually added those weeks to accommodate an artist in residence. The first of whom was, I believe, Larry Silk, the legendary documentary editor. Rest in peace. He passed away a few years ago. And it always helped people to learn from seasoned professionals, and every story was unique, how they got started and, sort of their work styles and, that work of an editor as more than a technician is more, some of them were social workers and confidants and, some people said like, the worst thing you could do is be a pair of hands. And that's not being an editor. That's just being an operator. It was just so many insights that came from that experience. And Steph was an artist in residence, you said late last year, early this year. We've been able to, they used to all be in person before the pandemic. So when the pandemic, it was a forcing mechanism for us to start doing blended versions of the classroom and hybrid versions and remote. I mean, for a year, they were just online. The sort of benefit of that was that we could, really open up the roster of artists in residence because they no longer had to be editing something in New York or flown into New York for the purpose of being one that, we would just zoom in and the experience, as far as I can tell from everything I've heard from students and instructors and artists in residence, is that it's not diminished at all. It's really, you're there in real time, having a conversation with students, sharing work, screening cuts. That's been a huge plus. And so we have bear hugged this digital approach by having artists in residence do it, having Sight, Sound, and Story events online about 10 times more frequently than we used to when they were in person. And now we're doing these very frequent podcasts. So we get to have a casual conversation, find out what's going on. And just, it's great. To me, this is my favorite part of the job. Just having a conversation, casually discussing, your career, your work. So that's my non-scripted version of what Manhattan Edit Workshop's about. We also teach certified classes in this and that and the other, Avid, Blackmagic, Pro Tools, blah, blah, blah. You can go to MEWShop.com and learn all that stuff. You don't need me to jabber on about it. What else they need to know, Jason?
You just literally said everything. Well, I could just say that I first came in contact with Stephanie via our other arm, Filmmaker U, where we do these recorded online things. And then we started doing interviews and I think we've interviewed you at least twice for a couple of your work. And, and then that's when I put her in touch with Janet and then that kind of just became like, it would be a great artist in residence. And it turned out you were amazing. So that's pretty much, check that stuff out on Filmmaker U. We have other specific interviews. I think you're with some other editors too, but we're happy to have Stephanie. You've worked on, I think, more than I could name here, but like recently Dahmer and the Dahmer Netflix series, History of the World Part 2, and Black Lady Sketch Show, and more, tons of stuff. And I'm sure we'll dive into some of that stuff, but welcome Stephanie to the show here.
She's in trouble. She said Stephanie means I'm in trouble.
Sorry.
Welcome, Steph.
Thank you.
So, Steph, give us a little bit of background, where you're from, where you are now, and how you got to, I mean, of all places, a video recording with the Josh Apter and Jason Beck. Like, how did you get here?
She lost a bet.
Well, I'm originally from Sierra Leone in West Africa. We moved to Colorado when I was young and went to school out there. I was originally a dancer, was my OG career. But I think it was like in high school, I saw the movie Seven, which I probably shouldn't have been watching at the time, but I loved the opening title sequence for that movie. I just like fell in love with it. I think it was just the fact that you can like learn so much about the story without any dialogue. And I, was really kind of captivated by that. So I would film things with my home movie camera and like splice things together on VHS tapes, not realizing that was like what editing is. I knew I wanted to be involved in film and TV in some capacity. So I had moved out to LA. I was still dancing, but I didn't know anybody, but I'd knocked on kind of every door I could find. And at one point I was working at Smashbox Studios, which is a photography studio that rents out production space in the back. And there just happened to be a French documentary that was cutting in one of the back spaces, and they needed a night assistant editor. And I was like, sure, absolutely. I would do anything just to get a foot in the door. And I just really fell in love with the process and realized that that's kind of what I had been doing in high school, not realizing that was like a career possibility. So I kind of gravitated towards that. The editor on that documentary, Ben Meyer, who's amazing, recommended me to a post house called Fancy Film that was looking for assistant editors. And I ended up working there for 2 years before I got the bump up. So just kind of worked my way up from there.
So you were working as an assistant for about, you say, 2 years at one shop, and how long at the other one?
Just a couple months on the French documentary, but Fancy Film, I was there for like 2 years, and they're more of an online house, as well as offline, but I helped a lot with the online. So it was kind of like a huge technical knowledge that I gained when I was there that I don't know that I would have elsewhere.
So you know why the volume on your Zoom was low and how to record. Come on, you don't fool anybody. So that's a pretty accelerated trajectory by sort of what you'd call, I guess, average standards, because a lot of people end up in the assistant world for years and years, and and then they sort of like take a pay cut to jump up and do the full editor. So what was it like? Is it out of necessity? What was this experience like to get like, hey, come here, you're editing this?
Well, it was, I think I was very lucky at Fancy Film because I had a lot of mentors there, a lot of editors who came through, just kind of took me under their wing and taught me a lot of like tips and tricks, and just watching the way that they worked with producers and directors was really helpful, I think, as well, and just learning how to navigate, like being in the chair. I think at one point I was just talking to the owner of Fancy Film, Bill McCumber, who's also like an amazing mentor. And I was like, I think, I'm really ready to cut anything. If you have anything that's coming in, I had been able to edit sort of shorter, like corporate industrial videos when I was working at Fancy Film, because they do have some of those come through from time to time. So I was like, I'm ready for whatever you have. And the project that was coming in next was actually a documentary about Mel Brooks and Carl Reiner's 2000-Year-Old Man sketch. And so I was like, please, I will do anything to edit this. And
wow,
I think we had developed, enough trust, and he knew kind of my work at that point to let me give it a shot, and he was always kind of there if, I'm like, how is this cut? Does this work? Is there anything you would do differently? Comedically, does this work? And so it was a really just amazing experience. And
Wow, that's
obviously
incredible.
Obviously I love Mel Brooks and Carl Reiner, so it was like a dream project. Especially to have that be my first like TV credit, I think.
Mm-hmm. Is there connective tissue between that and History of the World Part 2? Jumping around a little bit here.
You know what? There's not really. It was a coincidence, but it felt really serendipitous that I had come full circle to that show. And it was something that I know we talked about in my interview for the show. They're just like, we see you worked on this. And I'm like, yeah, that was my first thing. And now here's this. So we all kind of bonded over the 2,000-Year-Old Man sketch and over our love for Mel Brooks in general. So
yeah, considering Mel Brooks is he 100 now?
Something like that.
Like 97, I think now.
Well, once you get to, at that age, you're usually, around 100.
Did you actually get to meet him when you're working on the History of the World Part 2?
No, he did record like the voiceover for it. He did write also on the show, so we would see him from time to time on Zooms. And on the 2,000-Year-Old Man documentary, he would send email, like he emailed notes at one point, and we were all just like, "Whoa, Mel Brooks emailed us." So yeah, he's definitely present, but yeah, we just kind of saw him from afar on History of the World.
Mm-hmm. So that's a question sorry, Rafi, I got to jump in because cutting comedy's hard. And you're cutting a documentary about comedy, so some of that stuff it's already set up for you. But then History of the World, you're more I would say, in control of that in some way. So what's that? How do you know your sensibility is going to be the same sensibility as like a typical Mel Brooks crowd? And what do so what was the process? And you worked up with other editors on that, I'm assuming, yeah? Mm-hmm. So yeah, describe what that was like.
Well, I think for History of the World Part 2, it was really trying to figure out, because the original movie was out about 40 years ago, I think. Mm-hmm. And comedic timing has changed a lot since then, and like the things that people laugh at has like changed a lot over those years. So it was really trying to figure out a way to make it feel like it was still in the same vein as the movie, but also modern and fresh. So it was kind of a lot of, we would cut our dailies or cut a piece of the show and then show it to the whole post team the next day. We're just like, what's working, what's not working. And it was just really fun kind of finding the voice in that way, and just being able to involve the whole post team, because obviously all of us are big fans. So it was like, how do we like pay tribute to Mel here? How do we make sure this feels like, I don't know, true to
and make it funny and laugh? Like, imagine there must have been some screenings where it's like everybody's cracking up. It's like, this must work.
Yeah, there were definitely a lot of screenings and just trying to like litmus tests to see what would make who laugh and when. And I know something I do a lot if I'm cutting comedy is like, I'll think of the people who are going to watch it or people around me, and I'm like, I know this is going to make this person laugh. Let me sprinkle this little piece in here. Let me sprinkle this improv moment or this reaction shot or something, just to try to layer it out.
Okay, but I have to chime in. I mean, that's something that you get from, I feel like, decades of experience. Like, for you to get that aspect from such a young age, like, that's a gift. That is a skill that can't be taught. So good for you. I mean,
thank you.
Not everyone.
She's just born funny.
Yeah.
She's also 65 years old, Rafi.
Yeah.
So come on.
Wow. Well, I'll tell you more recently. I just saw the movie about Charlie Parker. It's called Bird.
Yeah.
And, yeah. And, they thought the doctor that saw him when he died thought that he was a male aged 55 and over, and he was only 34. So we can cut this out. I want to go back to your trajectory, like you were saying, Steph, that you were doing this for fun, and then during, I mean, what was your formal education? in order for you to get to this place. The reason why I'm asking is because we had someone on recently, her name is Annie Nelson, who sent out 500 resumes. She didn't even get her degree, but she worked and worked and worked, and she sent out 500 resumes and didn't get one bite. And then she fell into her current job. So how did it work for you?
Well, I went to University of Denver, and I actually studied journalism and political science. So I didn't really study editing at all, but within the journalism degree, you do study like broadcast journalism. So we did have kind of like a loose, we had a couple classes where we did have to kind of edit things together on Final Cut, like back in the day. Yeah, I didn't know editing was like a career path at all. And I really kind of was more focused on, I have a family of human rights attorneys, and I was always kind of like a social impact focused, just news focused person. And so I didn't know that editing would be like a career path or a way that you can kind of also still do those things, but within like an artistic way. So, yeah, I mean, in a way, I kind of did also fall into the editing side of things, in that I was lucky that I connected with the right person that needed a nighttime assistant editor. But I did have a little bit of Final Cut experience.
Is that what you were cutting on at first, or did you have to learn a new system?
Yeah, the documentary that I was an assistant editor on was luckily Final Cut. And so I was like, okay, good. At least I know some like bare bones things about this program. I learned so much just on the fly on that
That's
job.
the best way to learn. I mean, it's trial by fire, right?
And that's honestly like my favorite thing about editing is like no matter how long you do it and what day you're walking into the job, like you learn something new and different. And, it is like all trial and error as you go.
You're not still on Final Cut though. Maybe it would be great. I love it, but no.
No, I'm not.
I left that guy a long time ago.
Yeah, everybody left. It was sad, but I stayed. I was one of those. I went to like a launch event at, I don't know if you know TechServe. It was like the Apple store that wasn't an Apple store on 23rd. Sex and the City had episodes there and stuff. And there was an event that launched FCP10, and this guy who was like his whole post house, Radical Media in New York bought his facility years ago, but he was such an evangelist, and he did this whole thing in front of all the fanboys about like how great it was. And it's like FCP7 was like that big impression your butt made on the couch, and you just got to get up off there and embrace the new. And then everyone was like, I don't think so. I think I'll do Premiere or Avid, anything, no more Final Cut.
I remember when Final Cut 7 went away, I was in the middle of a project, and we had to switch it like midway through from Final Cut 7 to Avid. So it had more, I've never seen more tech issues on a project than on the one that I was on during that switch over. But yeah,
it was rough. People they would have old computers, and Avid the same way. Like you would have a computer that wasn't current, not running the latest operating system that could accommodate the Avid you had. Even you just wouldn't upgrade it, because you were like, once you finally got everything working, you just like, don't touch it, don't blow on it, don't look at it, and it would keep working. And then Final Cut, there were people who had 7 on older machines for years, and they were just workstations, so they wouldn't have to change their ways. But that's like, to me, I don't know, it was like going from film to digital. Like you kind of have to do it. It's like, so I'm a big, that's my weapon of choice. I love it so fast. But I had another question that's related to your background. So, sort of the social issues explored in a lot of Mel Brooks movies, right? Like the theory was that you could say more to more people through comedy, right? I've read about Blazing Saddles, and History of the World is pretty racy, although I'm not sure. I don't remember it well enough to know. But like, were you conscious of what part 2 was capable of saying, and how much you wanted to kind of like in the spirit of something that existed at a time where there really weren't the same kinds of rules around it or attitudes around it? What were you trying to accomplish and using comedy to do it?
I mean, I think something that was so exciting about working on History of the World Part 2 is that it was like turning these historic events that he's, it's like he has all these musical numbers where he's singing about love and light and peace and all of this stuff, which is not the way it would have happened. So it was kind of just like flipping moments like that on their head to make sure that those historical beats hit, but also in a way that was like accessible, I guess, to an audience, and hopefully would make people want to go Google these events or try to see the parallels after they watch the show.
So Jason, I wanted to jump further into how you met Steph and how it came about that she became artist in residence.
Yeah, sure. Well, we do these interview series for our other arm of education, Filmmaker U, and we've been doing them since the pandemic began. And I think we've had you on twice, Steph. I think you were on for Black Lady Schedule, and then I think History of the World Part 2. I don't think you came on for Dahmer, and we talk with different artists, editors included, and that's how we made that connection. It kept coming up with a mass amount of great work, and I thought, it seemed just the stuff you're doing just seems to fit right where a lot of our students probably would. The stuff you're working on isn't all like these feature films for people that are as old as the three of us here, and and it seemed like you were doing some good stuff. I had a question though, because we've had 4 or 5 editors on now, and I think 2 now have been dancers. Like it's kind of like I don't know if that's like a thing. It like I know one of the other guys we had on was a artist. I think Jeff Wolf might have been an artist. He made paint or something as well. But dancing for some reason seems to be it carries it over. Do you find that experience of all this stuff that you've been doing for years prior to editing with dancing affected your work?
Yeah, I think it's a massive part of my work, to be honest. As much as editing and dance look different from the surface, so much of my job as an editor is the pace of something, right? Or trying to, I guess, just create feelings or moments out of things, which is very much what dance is as well. Just trying to convey different feelings and emotions and timing and also from a dance background, like music is such a huge part of the job as well. So I think it's like monumentally helpful having that background as an editor personally.
So Jason, you segued perfectly into, Steph, what are you working on now? Tell us the latest and greatest.
Well, so I have a feature that just recently came out called We Grown Now. And then I am finishing up a project with Disney at the moment as well that I can't talk about yet.
Oh, that was my next question. Can you tell us more about it? No.
No, but I'm excited when I can. But yeah, We Grown Now came out a couple months ago. That's my more recent one that's come out, and it's about 2 boys. It's basically a coming of age story about 2 boys growing up in Cabrini Green in the 90s.
So you're doing features and series sort of alongside one another. Do you find that to be it seems a little unconventional, considering that most people are sort of like they sort of stick a track. How you finding the like sort of building the big structure of a feature versus working sort of series, episode to episode?
I mean, I think obviously they're like slightly different workflows, but I think ultimately, my job is to service the story. So on a TV series, it might be like in one episode you have like a nugget of something that happens, but a character arc happens much later in the series. So it's like you try to thread that needle throughout several episodes, versus obviously in a movie it's one contained thing, and you're working more closely with like a director or your producers, versus in TV you also usually have other editors on the project with you. And that's also something that I love, is like walking into another editor's room and saying like, hey, can you look at this, does this work, and sharing back and forth. So I think the approach is similar in that it's a collaboration, but each is
so you just press the magic button regarding collaboration. One of the things that we've been talking about in these talks is that in the last 3 years we experienced COVID. And for the film and the industry, basically this was how do we make this all work, from, I would say, from concept to acting to edit to post, et cetera, et cetera. So where were you during COVID, and were you working remotely? And weave into that, you've been in LA for this whole time, right? So how did that work out?
Yeah, it's I've been lucky to have been working through that, but it's been mostly remote. So up until this most recent job, which is hybrid, I've been working from home. So that's like a whole other way of collaborating. Our Black Lady Sketch Show season 2, 3, and 4 were entirely remote. So we only really, communicated through Slack, through texts and calls and Evercast. So it's really introduced like different ways of collaborating, but in a way I feel like it's made it easier to collaborate because you have more access maybe to people in that way. Or if you're screening something on Evercast, you can see people's faces, versus if you're sitting in a room, you're not always looking at them. So it's like you can kind of gauge what's working and when.
Is that the purpose of Evercast, so that you can watch people? Because I used to put a video camera in a screening room pointing at the people just to watch I was much more interested in people's reactions to something I was cutting than the thing. I mean, they're obviously they're both important, but do you find yourself watching people more than the thing? Or
yeah, it's probably creepy to say. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm watching you on Evercast. But there's something that's nice about being able to just like in real time see those reactions. Because usually if you're physically in a room, maybe you're behind someone or you're to the side, so you're not seeing, what their facial expression is. You might be able to see if they get like distracted or turn or look at their phone just to see when there's lulls. But I don't know. I liked the ability to see that kind of stuff on Evercast.
That's cool. I had not heard of that. It sounds like a pretty interesting tool. I mean, it's probably more of like a zero latency sort of like something that can really play a long form, clip or something, or a movie. But it's just interesting. Do you ever make change? I mean, the other question about watching it or watching something you're doing is you kind of feel the movie through people watching it when you're screening it. So, it's like maybe your body matches theirs, but like, do you notice that phenomenon where it's like you're sort of channeling an audience when you screen it for people and feeling like, oh shit, this isn't working, or that's funny and I didn't realize that was funny. Like, what's that like for you?
Yeah, I usually like I'll write down in a screening, I'm like, okay, this person shifted a little bit, or this person looked down, or this person did this here, just so I can like go back and try to figure out what it is that maybe they got distracted by, or what they weren't really into. So usually that's my aside from them giving me notes after the fact, I try to write down like, okay, around this time code, this happens.
Do you ever have like a
look back?
a moment where like like you're watching it, you're almost like, wow, like you have a react. It's so, I don't know. I find that process very, very interesting because it's not like the one when you're actually engaging the work as a technician or an artisan, whatever the heck you want to call an editor. You become an audience to it, and it's really weird way. It's like I almost like know that reaction mimics my reaction because I'm feeling something, and that's why I'm noticing somebody having a like, shifting in their seat or doing something. It's because I'm going like, this doesn't work or something. Yeah.
Yeah, it's always interesting shifting your perspective too, because you are like so deep in Avid or Final Cut or whatever you're cutting in. It's like you're so deep within those edits that you don't always realize how it will play if you're stepped away from your system. So I always like screenings like that, or even when I'm watching something down after I finish, whatever pass of something, I'm like, I'm gonna step away from the computer and just try to watch it on this monitor and not watch it.
That's Michael Russo said the same thing yesterday. I just want to watch it on TV. Like I'm sitting down watching something. It has a completely different, and it's impossible to be like, oh wait, let me just fix this and like jump in,
Exactly. Yeah, you just like force yourself to sit with it and try to figure out what it's doing, what it's doing for your emotions at the time. So yeah, I definitely try to do that as much as I can, just to step away and try to feel it for what it is outside of Avid.
So in wrapping things up, because we're almost out of time, tell us, what you're seeing. Give us your crystal ball, what you're seeing in the industry right now. One of the topics that we've started dabbling in is, how is AI being used in your industry at all, in your practice, in your work, and anything else you can share. And then our final question will be, what is the one takeaway that anyone watching this you would want them to learn from you?
Wow, lots of questions.
Lots of questions. I'm throwing it all out at you.
I mean, trends wise, and I think we talked about it a little bit before we even started this podcast, is kind of like the state of the industry. And I think it's been a really kind of daunting time for a lot of editors, or just a lot of people in this industry in general, because it doesn't feel like there's as many things getting greenlit, or there's not as many projects coming up. And I think a lot of that was due to strikes, but it had started even before that, with all of these different mergers. We had like the Warner Brothers Discovery merger. We had all these different things happening, and things weren't getting greenlit. But I feel like, I don't know, I'm hopeful, but I feel like things are slowly starting to pick up a little bit from what I've seen. So fingers crossed. I don't have a perfect crystal ball, but I do feel like obviously things are going to be changing a lot within the industry, but I hope that it still means that these projects will continue coming up for us. What was your other
takeaway? What do you?
Well, Josh and Jason, what are your takeaways from today's discussion?
Who cares what I have to say?
Yeah.
Steph,
I'm definitely going to rewatch the beginning of 7 again. I forgot about that. That was it.
So yeah, it holds up. I still will go and just watch those opening titles.
Is that like 9 Inch Nails or something grinding in the back? Yeah.
But you learn so much about the movie in that title sequence.
There you go, Josh. Jason has a takeaway.
He's allowed. Jason has one. I don't. I'm just. My takeaway is I'm hungry. I want lunch. No, there is. We also ask people like a guilty pleasure movie, but that might be the 7th thing. Like we've had people who watch. Like we knew an editor who watches like the opening of Once Upon a Time in the West to like sort of like it gets him going to cut something, right? Like do you have something where it's like a go-to or something you'll always watch, but it's on?
I love a couple things. I love the original Gossip Girl. That's my guilty pleasure show. It's great. There's some really over the top scenes, but it's very entertaining. And then Romy and Michelle's high school reunion. It's not a guilty pleasure. I just love that movie. is one that I think I just can watch over and over again. Or if I feel like I'm in a rut and I just want to go like, you know, or cleanse my palate, I'll just go watch Romeo and Michelle. I love that one.
That's a good one. I haven't heard. I mean, I've seen it. I loved it. It's, you know, it's a sort of a revenge movie with the guy in the helicopter inventing the glue. Like that just, I love those coming back to high school. Because I had such a, anyway, it's not about me. What's coming up, Steph? What should we be looking out for? Besides, you had mentioned one thing from Disney that we can't mention.
It's a superhero movie, isn't it? Or you can't say either way.
Hey, why are you doing that?
Look at
Tap
that
once
poker
for
face.
yes, twice for no.
She's good. She's got.
Yeah, don't do anything if it is one. There you go. I got my answer. By the way, I just saw Deadpool and Wolverine last night. I held out as long as I could.
I still have to watch that one. It looks amazing.
It's you know, I texted one person and said it's like way too much and also not enough at the same time. I was sort of like, I'll have to see it again because it's just like it's just so much coming at you at once. It's almost difficult. You can't even process it. Yeah, it's, I don't know. I'm right now mixed. I'm sure I'll like it again when I see it for the second and third and fourth and fifth.
Okay, so a little bit of trivia. Who else was in that movie that is now the longest on-screen superhero?
Are we spoiling this for people who haven't seen it?
Yeah. Yeah,
I haven't seen
spoiler.
it.
Yeah, Jason hasn't seen. We have two people in this group who haven't seen it yet. You can't.
No, we've never had a spoiler alert on this vlog.
And we're not about to start.
All right.
But now when I watch it, I'm going to try to figure out what the answer is to this.
Okay.
Well, I was scrolling through the internet and I just like, it was just like, I just saw something and I was like, damn it. Like, I just wanted to like not have to not look at things because I knew that, you know, the way I've been profiled by all the social media is like, I need to be fed Marvel Cinematic Universe junk. Yeah. So I just like, now I feel, all right, at least I know, and I'm not going to be like disappointed for knowing. But you said you've got and the movie is out now, or that it came out recently and is streaming now?
It's on demand now. It had a theatrical release in April, May. So now it's out to rent or buy. And it's called and it's on American Airlines as well. Apparently. Someone just sent me a photo.
That's where Rafi gets his Prime.
He spends a lot of time in airplanes. So it's called We Grown Now, is that? And all right, so you cut that. You're cutting some secret thing that we can't know about. Comedy drama. I haven't seen Dahmer either, and I really want to because that actor's, you know, again, he's a MCU graduate, but he's done some really amazing stuff. Right? He was in Mayor of Easttown too.
Oh, right? The X-Men, wasn't he an X-Man?
He's the fast guy, whatever his name is. I think that's
story he was in.
Yeah. So I'm always looking for new stuff to watch, but I think I have to watch Your Honor because I have family in New Orleans. I heard that's really great. And then Dahmer, maybe because it's going to scare me. I don't know if I want to watch that.
It's heavy.
It's heavy.
I'm sure. Well, is there anything else you guys want to talk about, or should we thank you?
We've got one last thing. Jason Banky, what is coming up at the Manhattan Edit Workshop?
Well, we have, like Josh said prior, we have a 6-week intensive starting up. And we have all the other Avid, Blackmagic, color corrections, and Pro Tools, all those classes. So please check out the website for all those upcoming dates. So we have tons of that stuff coming up.
So what
the 6 week is coming up in September, right? Right after Labor Day, September 9th or something?
Haven't confirmed the next artist in residence yet, but yeah, it is coming.
So what we're saying is that if you want to be a successful Hollywood editor like Steph Filo, take a class or a course at the Manhattan Edit Workshop. That's what we're saying.
Or become a dancer, and you know, that's either way works.
Or both.
or both. Exactly. We can do some dance exercises here too. By the way, you said that a lot of people were there have been a lot of actors who come through the class and musicians, and there's something about rhythm. There is something about that, like having a sense of like, whether it's vocal rhythm or music rhythm, like that. Actually, we've noticed people. It's just it's a knack for it, or they pick something up in a way very easily because of that sense of like flow and rhythm. And
we had a Rockette.
Sure.
Rockette
She's
free class, and she's now an editor.
Mm-hmm.
So
obviously.
Of course.
Obviously. All right. I'm going to wrap things up. Thank you very much, Josh Apter, Jason Banky, Manhattan Editor Workshop, and special thanks to Steph Filo, all the way out in California. We appreciate your time, waking up very, very early for this show.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Thanks a lot for coming. It's good talking to you.